as the sun dips below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the rolling hills. A celebration of love begins in a picturesque garden, draped in soft lights and surrounded by blooming roses. Lily and Jacob stand on the brink of forever. It's a day filled with joy and the promise of a perfect future, a day where love is meant to conquer all. But beneath the surface of this idyllic scene, something unspoken stirs. Lily, radiant in her white gown, moves with grace and confidence. She is a woman who has faced life's challenges head-on, emerging stronger each time. Today, she is ready to commit to the man she believes is her soulmate. Trust and loyalty are the pillars of her life, values she holds above all else. Jacob, standing tall at the altar, is the picture of a devoted groom. His smile is wide, his charm undeniable, but behind those bright eyes lies a secret. He is deeply in love with Lily, or so he tells himself, yet there's a restlessness within him, a craving for something more that he can't quite explain. And then there's Mia, Lily's best friend, the sister she never had. For years, they've shared everything, every joy, every sorrow. But today, as Mia watches Lily walk down the aisle, something else flickers in her eyes. Beneath the smiles and support, there's a simmering envy, a feeling she tries to bury, but today it's closer to the surface than ever. She loves Lily, but she also resents her success, her happiness, and most of all, the man standing at the altar. As the ceremony begins, the guests are all smiles, the music swells, and vows are exchanged. It seems like a moment of pure joy, a celebration that will be remembered forever. But for Lily, Jacob, and Mia, this day is more than just a beginning. It's the calm before a storm none of them could have anticipated. As Lily reaches the altar, something catches her eye, a fleeting glance between Jacob and Mia. It's quick, almost imperceptible, but it's there. A glance that lingers a moment too long, an awkward closeness that she can't quite place. For a brief second, unease washes over her, but she brushes it off, attributing it to pre-wedding jitters. But sometimes those fleeting moments are the beginning of something much larger. Sometimes, forever is not a promise kept, but a promise shattered. The vows are spoken, rings exchanged, and promises made, promises of love, fidelity, and a future together. Yet, as night falls and the celebration continues, the darkness within begins to surface, setting the stage for a betrayal that will turn this day of joy into a nightmare. Lily's journey to this moment wasn't a smooth ride. She grew up in a modest neighborhood where every opportunity had to be fought for. Life taught her that nothing would come easy. She faced an unstable home, financial struggles, and the constant pressure to succeed in a world that didn't always welcome her ambition. But Lily wasn't one to back down. She worked tirelessly, balancing multiple jobs while putting herself through school. Through every setback, she pushed forward, determined to carve out a stable and secure life. Her success was hard-earned, and she took pride in the life she built. Lily's relationship with Jacob became the centerpiece of this hard-won stability. They met when she was still in the early stages of her career, and together they climbed the ladder of success. For Lily, Jacob represented not just love, but the culmination of all her efforts, a symbol of everything she'd achieved. Their life together was the reward for her perseverance, built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. But beneath this strong exterior, Lily has always had a lingering fear. What if everything she's built could crumble in an instant? It's a fear she's buried deep. But as she stands at the altar, watching Jacob and Mia exchange a subtle glance, that fear begins to surface, threatening to unravel the life she's worked so hard to create. Jacob has always been driven by a need to succeed, to be the best. From a young age, he was the golden boy, charming, ambitious, and always at the top of his class. He thrived on the admiration of others, and this need for validation followed him into adulthood. To the outside world, Jacob appeared to have it all: a successful career, a beautiful fiancée, and a life that others envied. But behind closed doors, Jacob struggled with a restlessness he couldn't quite explain. Success and stability, while satisfying on one level, felt stifling at times. He missed the thrill of the chase, the unpredictability that once defined his life. And as his wedding day approached, that restlessness began to gnaw at him more intensely. Jacob's affair with Mia wasn't planned. It happened gradually, starting with harmless flirtation that quickly spiraled into something more. For Jacob, the affair provided the rush he had been missing, a dangerous escape from the pressures of his perfect life. Yet, even as he indulged in this secret, the guilt weighed heavily on him, especially as the wedding day drew near. Mia and Lily were inseparable growing up, more like sisters than friends. They shared dreams, secrets, and a bond that seemed unbreakable. But as they grew older, their lives took different paths. While Lily's star rose, Mia felt stuck in the shadows, unable to find the same success. On the surface, Mia was the supportive friend, always there with a smile and words of encouragement. But inside, she battled feelings of inadequacy and envy, watching Lily achieve everything she dreamed of, but never attained herself. When Jacob began to show interest in her, Mia felt a mix of emotions. The affair wasn't just about desire. It was about reclaiming some sense of control, taking something for herself in a life where she often felt overshadowed. Yet, as the wedding day approached, the more conflicted Mia became. She knew the affair was a betrayal of her best friend, but the power and attention it gave her were hard to resist. As she stood beside Lily on her wedding day, pretending to share in her joy, the weight of her deceit pressed heavily on her. As the wedding day loomed closer, Jacob and Mia found themselves entangled in a web of secrecy and desire. What began as fleeting flirtation had spiraled into a full-blown affair, their clandestine encounters becoming more frequent and intense. These meetings weren't just about physical attraction. They were an escape from the pressures and expectations that weighed heavily on both of them. They met in out-of-the-way places, avoiding the familiar to keep their secrets safe. Dimly lit bars, secluded parks, and out-of-town motels became their sanctuaries, places where they could be themselves without the fear of being caught. Each encounter was tinged with both excitement and dread, the thrill of being together matched only by the fear of what would happen if they were caught. With every meeting, the line between right and wrong blurred further, making it harder for them to walk away. Jacob was caught in a spiral of conflicting emotions. He loved Lily, or at least he wanted to believe he did. But the affair with Mia had awakened something in him, a need for excitement, an unpredictability his life with Lily no longer provided. He told himself this was just a fling, something that would end as soon as the wedding was over, but Mia was struggling with her own demons. The affair gave her a sense of power she hadn't felt in years. Power over Jacob and, in a twisted way, power over Lily. But guilt gnawed at her, especially as the wedding day approached. She knew what they were doing was wrong, but the excitement was too intoxicating to resist. Lily wasn't oblivious. She had always prided herself on her intuition. Recently, something felt off. It was in the little things: Jacob's sudden need for privacy, the way he would avoid eye contact when she asked about his day. There was that one time she saw a text flash on his screen, a name she didn't recognize. And before she could ask, Jacob quickly locked his phone, offering a weak excuse. Then there was Mia. Lily knew her best friend inside and out, or so she thought. But lately, Mia had seemed distant. During a casual conversation, Mia mentioned an event that Jacob had supposedly attended alone, something Lily hadn't heard about. When Lily asked about it, Mia quickly backtracked, but the seed of doubt was planted. These moments were fleeting, easy to dismiss as pre-wedding nerves, but they chipped away at Lily's trust, piece by piece, until doubt began to take root. She wasn't ready to confront it, not yet. but the feeling that something was terribly wrong was becoming impossible to ignore. The day had finally arrived. The air was filled with anticipation, the scent of fresh flowers and the soft murmur of guests waiting for the ceremony to begin. The setting was magical. An elegant garden adorned with delicate blooms, sunlight filtering through the trees, casting a warm golden glow over everything. As Lily walked down the aisle, all eyes were on her. She was radiant, her smile wide and genuine, her eyes locked on Jacob at the end of the aisle. To the guests, this was a picture-perfect moment, a beautiful bride, a handsome groom, and the promise of a lifetime of happiness together. Jacob, standing at the altar, played his part flawlessly. His smile was bright, his gaze unwavering as he watched Lily approach. He took her hand in his, the picture of devotion as he recited his vows, his voice steady and filled with emotion. For those watching, it was a moment that seemed to capture the very essence of love and commitment. But beneath the surface, something darker was stirring. Jacob's mind wasn't entirely on the vows he was making. As he spoke, a part of him was still caught in the web of deceit he had spun with Mia. His smile, though convincing, was tinged with guilt. The ceremony went off without a hitch, and now it was time to celebrate. The reception was a lively affair filled with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. The guests were caught up in the joy of the occasion, toasting the newlyweds and wishing them a future filled with happiness. But for Jacob and Mia, the celebration was anything but carefree. The tension between them was palpable, visible in the way their eyes met across the room, in the brief, stolen touches that went unnoticed by everyone else. Each glance, each touch, was a reminder of the secret they shared, a secret that felt more dangerous with every passing moment. As the night wore on, the risk became even greater. They both knew they had to be careful, that one wrong move could expose them. But the temptation to steal just one more moment together was too strong. The thrill of their secret affair was too intoxicating to resist. Lily had been so caught up in the excitement of the day that she hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary. At least, not at first. But as the reception continued, she began to pick up on small things that didn't quite sit right. It was in the way Jacob's smile would falter for just a moment when he thought she wasn't looking, or the way Mia seemed distracted, her laughter a little too forced. Then there was that glance, quick but unmistakable, between Jacob and Mia. It was fleeting, over in a heartbeat, but it sent a chill down Lily's spine. It was a look that spoke of something more, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. She tried to shake it off, telling herself she was just being paranoid, that it was nothing more than pre-wedding nerves. Despite her best efforts to dismiss her feelings, the doubt began to grow. Every laugh, every smile from Jacob and Mia felt like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. The joy of the day started to feel hollow, the celebration tinged with a sense of unease she couldn't shake. The wedding day had been a beautiful whirlwind of emotions, a day filled with love, laughter, and the joy of being surrounded by friends and family. By the time Lily and Jacob finally retired to their hotel suite, they were both exhausted. The celebrations had taken their toll, and all Lily wanted was to relax and enjoy the first night of their marriage. But something felt off. Jacob had been distant throughout the evening, his mind clearly elsewhere. As they entered their suite, Lily noticed how quiet he had become, his usual warmth replaced by an unsettling silence. Despite her attempts to lighten the mood, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. As they lay in bed, Lily reached out to hold Jacob's hand, seeking comfort and connection, but Jacob, overwhelmed by uncertainty and guilt, pulled away slightly. His mind raced with thoughts he couldn't voice. He felt trapped by the vows he took, unsure if he truly loved Lily the way he once did, yet feeling immense guilt for leading her on. Despite his best efforts, sleep eluded him. Hours later, well after midnight, Lily was fast asleep while Jacob remained wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The silence of the room was oppressive, and his thoughts were a chaotic storm of doubt and regret. The more he thought, the more restless he became until he could no longer stay in bed. Quietly, he slipped out from under the sheets, careful not to wake Lily. He grabbed the keycard to their room and left, seeking solace in the only person who understood his turmoil, Mia. Mia's room wasn't far, and Jacob found himself outside her door, hesitating before knocking. She answered quickly, her expression mirroring his own, tired, conflicted, but also relieved to see him. Without a word, she stepped aside to let him in, and they closed the door behind them. Back in the suite, Lily stirred in her sleep, reaching out for her husband, only to find the bed empty. Confused and still half asleep, she called out softly, "Jacob?" when there was no answer. She sat up, her heart beginning to race as concern set in. She checked the bathroom, but it was empty. Panic started to creep in as she tried to call him, but his phone wasn't connecting. With growing anxiety, she tried again, then decided to call the only person she trusted to help her, her best friend, Mia. But Mia's phone wasn't connecting either. Lily's worry intensified as she paced the room, unsure of what to do. She felt a deepening sense of dread as she tried to piece together where Jacob could be. Desperate for help and not knowing where else to turn, she decided to go to Mia's room, hoping her friend could help her figure out what was going on. As Lily approached Mia's door, she hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Realizing it was likely locked, she knocked softly, calling out, "Mia, are you there? I can't find Jacob." But there was no response. The silence only heightened her anxiety. She knocked again, louder this time, her heart pounding in her chest. Lily's face shifted from confusion to shock, then to deep, visceral pain as she pieced together what was happening behind the closed door. She froze for a moment, her mind struggling to process the betrayal she was about to uncover. Then, with shaking hands, she took out her keycard and tried to unlock the door, only to realize it wasn't the right one. In a moment of desperation, she banged on the door, her voice trembling. "Mia, open the door. I need to talk to you." The door finally opened, revealing Jacob and Mia, both looking stunned and guilty, the truth laid bare and Lily's world shattered. The room fell silent as Jacob and Mia realized they'd been caught. They both turned to look at Lily, their faces draining of color as the reality of the situation sank in. Jacob took a step toward her, his hands raised as if to explain, but Lily backed away, her expression a mix of shock, hurt, and rising anger. "How cute you!" Lily's voice was barely audible, choked with emotion. "On our wedding night," the words hung in the air, heavy and accusing as tears began to stream down her face. The tension in the room was unbearable, every word cutting deeper as the reality of the betrayal crashed down on Lily. The life she had imagined with Jacob, the trust she had placed in Mia, all of it shattered in an instant. The revelation of betrayal shattered Lily's world, and in a moment of pure, uncontrollable rage, she locked her eyes onto a heavy object on the nightstand, a decorative glass vase. Without fully realizing what she was doing, she grabbed it and hurled it at Jacob with all her strength. The vase crashed into Jacob's head with a sickening thud, shattering on impact. He staggered back, shock and pain etched across his face as he collapsed to the floor, blood pooling beneath him, the crimson staining the pristine white carpet. Mia screamed, a sound of pure terror, but Lily was beyond hearing it. The fury that drove her to violence lingered only for a moment, before it was replaced by a cold, horrifying realization of what she had done. Lily's mind reeled as she processed the scene before her. The man she once loved lay motionless at her feet, his blood staining her wedding dress. The room, once filled with symbols of love and commitment, was now a nightmarish tableau of betrayal and death. The room fell into an eerie silence, the chaos of moments before replaced by a suffocating stillness. Lily, covered in blood, stared down at Jacob's body, her mind struggling to grasp the enormity of her actions. She felt detached from reality, as though watching herself from a distance, unable to comprehend how things had spiraled so out of control. Mia, frozen in place, watched Lily with wide, terrified eyes. She backed away slowly, her body trembling, but she was too shocked to run or scream. The horror of the situation was too overwhelming for her to process. Everything she ever knew had been torn apart in an instant. Lily sank to her knees beside Jacob's body, her hands hovering over him as if trying to reverse what she had done. But there was no going back. The reality of her actions crashed down on her, and she began to sob uncontrollably, her cries echoing in the now lifeless room. In that moment, love and trust were transformed into something deadly. The consequences of betrayal were written in blood, and a life once filled with hope was now in ruins. Lily, who had once been a bride full of dreams, was left alone with the haunting reality of her actions, a reality that could never be undone. Lily, who had once filled with so much promise, now felt like a tomb, suffocating in its stillness. Lily's hands shook uncontrollably as she tried to comprehend the magnitude of what she had done. She looked down at Jacob's lifeless body, the blood pooling around him, and felt a wave of nausea. Mia, finally breaking free from her paralysis, backed away slowly. Her mind screamed at her to flee, but her body was rooted to the spot. The fear was all-consuming, but so was the guilt. She was part of this betrayal, and now a witness to its devastating consequences. Lily's sobs eventually faded into silence, leaving her alone with her thoughts. The weight of her actions crushed her, and she couldn't see a way forward. Everything she once knew, everything she once believed in, had been destroyed. The morning sunlight filtered through the windows of Mia's hotel suite, revealing a scene of devastation. It was the housekeeping staff who first discovered the tragic aftermath. Jacob's lifeless body on the floor, blood pooling beneath him, the remnants of a struggle scattered across the room. The police arrived swiftly, and the investigation began. The lead detective, seasoned yet visibly disturbed by the scene, scanned the room, taking in the shattered vase, the overturned furniture, and the blood-stained carpet. There were no signs of forced entry, indicating that the violence had erupted between people who'd willingly been in the room. The truth was buried in the remnants of a night gone horribly wrong. For Lily, there would be no escape from the consequences of her actions. As the investigation began to uncover the tragic events in Mia's room, Lily sat in the cold, sterile interrogation room, her hands shaking as she recounted the events of the previous night. The weight of what had happened pressed down on her, leaving her feeling detached and numb. She was no longer the happy bride from the day before. She was now a suspect in a murder investigation. The detectives were methodical, their questions probing. Lily's responses were fragmented, her voice barely audible as she confessed to everything. The discovery of Jacob and Mia together, the confrontation, the rage that had overtaken her, and the fatal blow she delivered with the vase. But even as she spoke, it was clear she struggled to fully comprehend the gravity of her actions. The trial became a media spectacle, with every detail of the tragic night laid bare for the world to see. Lily, once a bride, was now a defendant, and the courtroom was filled with spectators eager to witness the unraveling of her life. The prosecution portrayed Lily as a woman driven to madness by the ultimate betrayal, finding her husband with her best friend. The defense, however, argued that she had been pushed to the brink by the shock of the discovery and the emotional turmoil that followed. In the unforgiving light of the courtroom, the bonds of love that once held them together were now the source of unimaginable pain. As the trial wore on, those closest to the tragedy reflected on the events that had led to this moment. Friends, family, and even the lawyers involved were left to grapple with the implications of what had happened. How love, betrayal, and rage had led to such a tragic end. The tragedy did not end with Jacob's death. It rippled through the lives of everyone connected to him, leaving a trail of pain and unanswered questions. After days of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached its verdict. The courtroom was tense, every eye on Lily as the judge prepared to deliver the decision. Guilty of voluntary manslaughter, the judge declared, sentencing her to 10 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 7. Lily stood as the sentence was handed down, a sense of resignation washing over her. The weight of her actions had finally settled in. There was no escaping the consequences of that night in Mia's room. Lily's life, once filled with dreams of happiness, was now defined by the consequences of a single devastating moment. The love that had once been her strength had ultimately led to her downfall. Though the trial had ended, the aftermath continued to affect the lives of those involved. Jacob's family, still grieving, struggled to find closure. Mia, coping with the guilt of her involvement, was left to rebuild her life amidst the whispers and judgment of the community. The community, once united by the celebration of the wedding, was now divided, each person coping with the shock and betrayal in their own way. The story of Lily, Jacob, and Mia is a tragic reminder of the destructive power of unchecked emotions. Love, once a source of strength, twisted into something dark, leading to betrayal, violence, and ultimately loss. As the dust settles on this tale, the moral implications become clear. Anger and jealousy left to fester can consume even the most stable relationships. In the end, the line between love and hate is thinner than we imagine. Lily's story serves as a reminder of how easily we can be consumed by our darkest emotions. What should have been a celebration of love turned into a story of betrayal, revenge, and tragedy. A cautionary tale about the dangers of letting our emotions control us. What should have been a celebration of love became a haunting tale of betrayal and loss. A reminder that sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. New story tomorrow.